Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is this time of year again when everyone comes together at a special place looking at some very interesting presentations that the game developers set up so cunningly. And of course the journalists are all there, and all media coverage is there nowadays, and developers try to look the best they can, make the games look best they can, often make the games even look better than they actually are in the end. Of course, I'm talking about E3, the big press conference with all the announcements and all the stuff that's going down there. And today I would like to talk a little bit about my personal highlights of E3. So come along, a little journey where I'm talking a little bit about what I liked about the presentations and what I didn't like. I'm mentioning the games that I personally found very good and the games that I found quite interesting but I'm still skeptical about. So welcome to this episode of Highlights of E3 2015. Let's start off with Bethesda. Bethesda had their presentation on Microsoft conference. And to be honest, in terms of Bethesda, we pretty much knew what was in stake for us. Doom was an obvious presentation that was shown, as well as Fallout 4, which was already scheduled. Though we I didn't really guess that there would be this much amount of information that actually came from the presentation. I was pretty impressed by that they actually went in so much detail and showed so much. But I guess if you keep silent about the game for so many years, you just have to let it out at one point and say, hey, here's all we got. Well, it's probably not all they got, but it's a lot of what they got. Or did we? Actually, what I didn't have on the radar, and that is an honest opinion, is Dishonored 2. I mean, I knew it would be coming around someday, but I didn't think it would be coming to E3 because it wasn't scheduled, it wasn't hinted at. They even said Dishonored 2 would not come to E3, if I'm correct. And that really took me off guard, and I was really happy that they actually announced Dishonored 2 on this press conference. I was pretty surprised. One of the highlights of this press conference actually was Dishonored 2, in my opinion. I love Dishonored 1, I play the hell out of this game, especially since it's stealth and action, both viable paths. You didn't ever have to kill anyone, you always had multiple options. It's a sandbox style game, which I personally like a lot, those kinds of games. And what really caught me was the fact that we can this time around actually play as Corvo or Emily Caldwin when she is grown up, which is pretty amazing actually. Then we do have the fact that each of them has their own powers, their own costumes, and there is even some little variations in terms of the story if you play one or the other, which is pretty amazing if you ask me. Also, the Dishonored 2 will be playing in Corvo's home country, so maybe even in his hometown, I'm not sure, but around there where Corvo was originally born in the Empire, since we do know that the Empire consists of multiple islands and countries, and this is Corvo's home country, which is pretty interesting in a lot of ways. I'm actually pretty psyched about what they do with the game and what concepts they have. We don't know a lot about it so far. I think it's only single player according to the developers, though I'm not sure if that is confirmed, so keep out on that. I would really like a co-op mode in Dishonored. That would be really cool, even if it was just some kind of co-op challenge, sandbox, kill all the enemies in the area mode, something like that, though story would be cool, of course. But there's still the DLC, right? I mean, Brigmore Witches and The Knife of Dunwell was one of the best paid DLC that I ever had in a game. So there's hope for that. Now, Fallout 4. Fallout 4 To be honest, I didn't play a lot of Fallout 3, neither did I jump on the Fallout New Vegas train. I just never got into the Fallout series, but the concept was always pretty interesting for me, and to be honest, I'm pretty psyched about Fallout 4. What I liked most about Fallout 4 is that they stick to the core elements, or that they seem to stick to the core elements of the series. From what I've been seeing, they have been trying to really go down the nostalgia path, and not just because they want to get sales, but because they really value what they are doing. Because they really care about this universe that they have been creating, and that is my impression from them. Also, I like that you can actually play a female or a male, and that ethnicity doesn't play a role. That means you can play an Afro-American, you can play a guy who is as white as it possible, and you can play, I think you can play as Asian, as a guy with Asian features, so there's nothing that really restricts you on what you can do, and the face editor seems pretty normal in my opinion, pretty simple, and that is good in my as long as there are enough possible combinations of faces, which there seem to be, since the face editor is basically right out of the engine and is the same that they used to make every NPC in the game, so you have great variety here. As long as that is a given, well, I'm in. A simple display is always important for something like that, because there are sometimes face editors in RPGs that are just too much. You can change too much, and in the end you spend hours doing something and you don't really know how to get it right. So I like a combination out of simple and at the same time of course very variable in terms of what kind of options you have. I also like how the new Pit-Boy looks. It's pretty nice and authentic how you can look at it, and how he controls the switches while you're going through the menu. The crafting and building system is something that I found very, very appealing, since it seems to be very deep, and you seem to have a lot of combinations of weapons that you can craft and other crafting options, which I'm not going to go into any details now. I'm probably making another Fallout 4 video just for that. And I like the upgrades to VAT system. Several other little things that I really liked, like the graphics, the sound effects, and other things. I'll be probably doing a video on that, and also putting that up. So let's move on to the next game.
It is from here that you'll explore the most ambitious and detailed game world that we have ever made, culminating in the massive ruins of downtown Boston.
Another game that I have found very interesting, and that I of course have been following for some time now, so it's no new game, is MGS5, obviously. Metal Gear Solid 5 will probably be one of the highlights this year, and to be honest, with the first trailer they showed, they really... There was a shit ton of information that was in that trailer, a lot of symbolism, a lot of faces, familiar faces and unfamiliar faces. A lot of material to speculate, and it told a lot about the general narrative themes of the game and the atmosphere. It brought a lot across to the viewer, to show them how the game will be like, probably. We saw some interesting characters and reveals, and a lot of stuff, like I said, for speculation. MGS5, Well, no matter how it turns out to be, because there are still some worries that I have in terms of the size of the mission areas that we have, because Assassin's Creed, in the beginning of the series and later on in the parts in between, which weren't that well, did a lot of mistakes in terms of restricting the player too much to specific mission areas, so I hope MGS5 doesn't fall into that trap, for example, and also the controversy about how much Kojima is involved in the end of the development now. But it seems to me like it's a really good game and they have a solid concept, they have everything set up, they already had everything set up before the whole Kojima-Konami fallout started, and I'm really looking forward to it because I think it will be a highlight of this year. Now, so EA's conference was not that bad actually, and that was surprising for me personally. I guess EA will always be EA, and therefore the press conferences are always very similar, and I don't expect too much from EA, and that's probably the reason why I was surprised. At least Star Wars Battlefront did seem okay to me. I mean, it's still only a few planets that the game has, still no real single player mode, neither campaign nor quick start, there's still no space battles, and you could basically say Star Wars Battlefront, this version, is basically a Battlefield with a Star Wars reskin and some slight changes in terms of mechanics and sound effects. Well, the sound effects are good though, you gotta give him that. DICE knows how to do sound effects, I really appreciate that. On the other hand, I don't know how good it will be in the end, with all the stuff that is not in this game, especially since I'm a single player. Yeah, sure, I'm playing multiplayer every once in a while and I have fun doing it, but I'm going in there for the single player experience, for the fun, or the co-op maybe, because Star Wars Battlefront back in the days, I know PS2 or Star Wars Battlefront 2, we were playing co-op all the time, quick start and stuff like that. We were playing the campaign with the, I don't know how it's, Squadron 51 I think it was, and I really loved that. And of course Galactic Conquest, which is still not in there. So there's that. Yeah, not sure about this one. Then we had a little surprise. I actually didn't know that they were presenting this in the EA presentation. That was Mass Effect Andromeda. I'm a big fan of the Mass Effect series, so you can probably imagine that I was happy that I heard about Mass Effect Andromeda, despite the feelings I had towards BioWare at the end of the Mass Effect 3. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. The game seems to play in another galaxy, the Andromeda Galaxy, as the title of the game says. You will play as a human. Again. Despite all the people wanting to play maybe as, I don't know, Asari, Krogan, Turian. People would love to choose another race, but they seem to put us into the human shoes every time. I don't know what it is or why it is. I can imagine that it's hard to make a storyline for different characters, but at the same time, I would even appreciate if we just had different voice for the different races, or at least, let's say, the human voice can be the Sari voice and the Turian voice with slight voice modifications on top of it. And then we need a new one for the Krogan. Oh god, how bad. Maybe we can let the Krogan out. That we don't have to play a Krogan. We just wanted a little bit of variation in terms of what races we can choose, but it doesn't seem like it fits into their concept of the game. So that's disappointing. But on the other hand, I am like that you're able to have a new team again, that the focus is on exploration. We did see a glimpse of a Krogan, so the Krogan are definitely in as a race, as NPCs. So there's that. And considering the presentation style of the trailer, the buildings appearing out of nowhere as well as the other individuals appearing, and they started shooting each other, fighting each other, I guess multiplayer will be in again. Not such a great thing to me, but I think it was expected since it's EA and EA always has to have a multiplayer, right? I mean, yeah, I did like the multiplayer, I didn't mind it, it was fun for a time. But my focus is still, and I hope their focus is also still, on the single player gameplay, because that is what's made Mass Effect a great experience. And you had your choices and consequences, and you had your systems, you had your RPG stuff going on, you did have a whole galaxy to explore and do single player in, and it was all nicely written, great characters, even if some of them were real stereotypes. And yeah, that was kind of what made the charm of Mass Effect, and I hope they still focus on that and don't spend too much time on the multiplayer. I hope multiplayer is just an extension of the general mechanics of the game, where they say, hey, you can go there and, yeah, control every race you want and fight against each other and stuff like that. I hope that's still the case. That's it for E3's press conference. Let's move on to Squeenix. Yeah, Square Enix press conference. There were some surprises in Square Enix press conference. They had a pretty nice nostalgia trip going on when they revealed the remake of Final Fantasy VII. Well, I'm not sure how good it will be in the end. So, considering it's done from different people, so we have to wait and see on this one, as often.
The promise has been made.
There was also Hitman 6, which I pretty much liked that it was mentioned, that there was a trailer shown, but at the same time, well, I found Hitman trailer mentionable, but, you know, I hope for a little bit more than a cinematic trailer. I hope for gameplay, actually. I don't know how far they are in the game, so I can't be sure, but gameplay would have been nice. I know IO Interactive can nail the general core idea and the atmosphere behind the game. What I need to know is that they can actually handle the gameplay, the sandbox and narrative elements of the game. If they can handle that in the right way, that's what I need to know. And that's a big question mark, still. I mean, I can't do anything else than trust them. Because aside from one game, they actually did a lot of good in the Hitman franchise, but I was a little disappointed that they didn't show a gameplay trailer. Maybe it's still to come, so if there would be a gameplay trailer about Hitman 6, I will definitely cover this one. Because it's of great interest to me, as my name already says, Sneaky Dexter. I am a stealth fan, a big stealth fan. So everything stealth, I'm gonna cover it. Hey guys, so it seems there has been an update on the Hitman 6 front, and it's actually the case that there is a Hitman trailer, gameplay trailer out at the moment.
In reality, he is one of the ringleaders in an enigmatic spy ring called Iago. They deal in secrets that unseat governments.
I will be reviewing that trailer and looking a little bit into what we can see from the things that we get shown there, and what is positive and negative in another video. So hold out for this video, and yeah, keep your eyes open for that one.
To a genuine masterpiece of assassination.
Another thing that really impressed me was Deus Ex Mankind Divided. I mean, boy oh boy. I did already like Deus Ex Human Revolution. I still thought that non-lethal takedowns were a little bit too easy and that they were a little bit too much kind of rewarded. In contrast to the kills and everything else, it kind of takes away the moral struggle and makes it more calculation than an actual moral decision. But aside from that, the game was really dope. And although it didn't have everything the old Deus Ex games had, I still thought it was one of the best continuations of a series that I've ever seen, and I can't wait what Eidos Montreal is doing with Deus Ex Mankind Divided, because I know they get the atmosphere right, I know they can do stealth, I know they can give you a lot of options if they want to, and I know they are really good in terms of the story and the lore of the game. So I'm pretty excited about this trailer and about what they are doing with it. The game looks gorgeous, really, and it looks pretty much, from the atmosphere and tone and the colors and art style, looks pretty much like a Deus Ex game, like Human Revolution looked as well, and I love that. Now, then there's other games that are maybe a little bit mentionable. To be honest, there are a lot of games, and I did of course not see every press conference from start to finish. I didn't see all of them, and I did skip here and there a little bit when it became boring for me personally. So as usually, there are things missing, of course. The game called The Last Guardian didn't look all that bad. Really liked the art style and the concept of it. Also, Fallout Shelter seemed to be a pretty nice handheld title for Fallout fans, so be sure to check into that. Everyone who is interested in Fallout and did play the previous Fallout games, it's of course a handheld title, a mobile title, so don't expect too much, but the developers themselves said that the game was purposefully created to be a mobile title, just because the concept fits a mobile title the best, and it couldn't be better on a PC or anywhere else. So I guess it is a simple game of resource management, which from what I've seen it is that. So that's an interesting game to look at, a little one though. I think it's free, so that might be good. At the same time, we have the usual annual releases, of which I actually didn't find any surprising or particularly interesting. Konami did fuck up Silent Hill, so there's nothing to see in this regard, unfortunately. Then Microsoft, yeah, there is the news that they went back a little and tried to make more Xbox 360 games available for Xbox One. Because they probably realized that their sales are not going up because a lot of Xbox 360 players are still satisfied with what they have with the Xbox 360. To be honest, it was one of the best consoles of the last generation, and it was basically the standard console that everyone had in his household, if one had a console, of course. So they're trying to row back there and say, no, we can make it compatible. Yeah, well, didn't work out that well in the beginning, did it, Microsoft, to do not support downwards compatibility. Especially since most of the games that are 360 are probably also PC games, so it shouldn't be hard to transfer it from PC to the Xbox One in the end. And even if it was, they gotta change a lot. Well, they should have thought about it before they created the Xbox One in a way that it wasn't accessible, wasn't compatible. I'm pretty sure that was just a scam. In my opinion, it could have been possible to just play the Xbox 360 games right from the CD if they build in the feature. So don't let yourself be fooled there, guys. Then there's Ubisoft's press conference. Yep. To be honest, I wasn't really sure if I would even go there. If I'd cover this one, because after all, I did long ago cease to be an Assassin's Creed fan. Although I was a big one in the beginning. A very big Assassin's Creed fan. They did fuck up almost all of their launches in the last 2 years. So they didn't really bring a lot of innovation, confidence, or creativity to the table when it comes to things like Far Cry 4 being almost the same as Far Cry 3, only, you know, in another region and 1 or 2 changes to it. Then there was the Watch Dogs debacle with mediocre story, boring character, and downgrade. Then Assassin's Creed Unity's instability, and to be honest, the game wasn't all that great. I mean, it was not bad in terms of story and gameplay, but it wasn't all that great either, and that's the problem. And if it's not running well, then neither on PC, nor PS4, nor Xbox One at the release, that's just shitty. Then there was the whole thing about, you know, copying elements from one game to the next. And they did that a lot in the recent years. They just took one element out of a game like Assassin's Creed and put it in a game like Watch Dogs and said, hey, here we are. I mean, that doesn't really spell creativity or innovation or new to me. So Ubisoft is a very, very problematic topic for me, especially since I don't have a lot of confidence in them, but I always thought them to be pretty clever. The problem is they don't seem to care. They seem to go on and on in the way they did it for years now, and they don't seem to see the error of their ways. So that is a big problem. For what it's worth, I always thought that Ubisoft had the right ideas and concepts, that just the execution was the problem here, that they messed everything up in the execution. I mean, that's not a great thing to say about the company, but it's the truth. They always had brilliant ideas, they always had great and innovative ideas, in my opinion. The problem is they always messed it up somewhere along the process. I don't know in which department of development that falls. Who is to fault here? Maybe it's different persons at different times, different games. Maybe it's always the same issue, but in the end, the fact is the releases are not stable in terms of technical issues and bugs and everything else. There's too much of the same in every game they do, and they're not very consumer friendly in late years. So I didn't know if I would cover their games, but I guess I just thought, what the hell, and looked up their conference, looked a little bit in there, and saw, well, I didn't see anything that was really spectacular, in my opinion. There was 1 or 2 interesting things. I mean, the Division looks okay, but I'm not getting excited there. Probably because I don't have the time for MMOs, and it's not entirely... probably not entirely what I imagine it to be in the end. There are some games where you know what you're getting, but the Division, I'm pretty sure that there are things that I expect to be there that in the end won't be there. So I'm not getting too excited there. What really surprised me, I have to admit that, were 2 games at the very end of the presentation. For one, there's Rainbow Six, which is now officially on my radar again. I don't say that I'm hyped because I know Ubisoft, but they are on my radar again. So why? That is pretty simple. First of all, they are going to do a beta in September, which is a very, very good step in the right direction if you compare it to what they did in the last years with other games like Splinter Cell and so on. They didn't never do a beta or anything. They just put it out there, and that was a mistake in my opinion. If you have a multiplayer mode, especially if you have a multiplayer mode, but sometimes also if you have a single player or co-op mode, you put out a beta or demo or something like that to show them, hey, this is what concept we do have, what we think is right, to get some feedback, you know, especially series which are kind of on the edge of being revived or were not that successful in the latest years, and that counts for Rainbow Six as well as for Splinter Cell. So, like I said, I'm interested, and that doesn't mean it will be good. Considering it's Ubisoft, I'm taking everything with a grain of salt. Especially considering Ubisoft's late history with first-person shooters in terms of elements and controls and everything else, which is not all that great. But I'm keeping an eye on that one. It really surprised me that there is actually single-player mode and Terrorist Hunt, which are both back now. I still wish there would be a little bit larger levels, if you ask me, because the levels seem pretty condensed in my opinion. They're just one house or something like that where the terrorists are in and you gotta hunt. But I really hope that they have Terrorist Hunt modes or single players where it is really a big area where you have to get in from different angles and look how it works and get the tactical view going. You know what I'm talking about. And I hope that is the way. Co-op, of course, Terrorist Hunt means co-op, which is great, 4 players, up to 4 players. As well as the single player, which has been confirmed, but we do not know any story details yet, so there's that. We still have to wait if this is any good, if it's true to the core identity of Rainbow Six. We have to wait on this. And what also surprised me, and what I found the most interesting concept, is Ghost Recon. To be honest, it was really a surprise to me, since Ghost Recon was so not on my radar. I thought maybe they would do another Splinter Cell game. I had it in the back of my mind that they might be doing Ghost Recon, but considering that Ghost Recon Future Soldier wasn't all that great in terms of concept and everything, I did think that Ghost Recon might have been set out for good, like the Prince of Persia series or something like that, so they could think about something new, but it seems they already had something new in mind. Of course, the concept is mostly stolen from MGS5. And with stolen, I don't mean really stolen. I just mean they had the same idea. I don't care who had the idea first or how they had it. They had the same idea, and it's pretty interesting because a lot of games these days seem to have that idea of combining an open world with some kind of sandbox, with some kind of game that has this core concept of sandbox and freedom of choice in terms of stealth and combat, stealth and action, which is still in the game, which I personally find great. Open world can be an interesting concept for Ghost Recon if it is done right, and that's the point. That's a big if. Open world can help give you some freedom. It can help so you have more side missions, more to do, more interesting activities, a more seamless transition between different missions and areas. And the story, it can even help further the story, make it a little bit deeper and denser. You also have the 360 approach here on missions, which means that you will be able to probably go to a mission from any direction and start it there to infiltrate and stuff like that, which is the concept basically that MGS5, I hope, can also deliver. If you, however, do not restrict the missions artificially. That is the requirement for it to be of an advantage in the end. Because if you restrict the mission with artificial boundaries and mission areas and stuff like that, which is what MGS is doing at the moment and what I am a little bit worried about, then of course there's the problem which Ubisoft fell into with the AC series before, that in the end it won't turn out that great and the open world won't have as many advantages as they think it has. So the idea basically is nice, and the variable options in terms of stealth and action, which are both viable, and it seems that you have more than 2 ways to go, so you can 3 ways, you can vary a little bit between them. It seems they do blur the lines between stealth and action in terms of that they are gonna say, we do not separate it completely. So you can kind of have various degrees of stealth and action in that game, which I find personally great because I think Splinter Cell Blacklist probably had the main problem that they had too much separation between the 3 different play styles instead of making them flow into each other, kind of. So there's that. The whole concept that they have, open world, stealth, action, variable options, it all plays into what Ubisoft's core philosophy is in the last years. And that concept, to be honest, is amazing. What's in question here, of course, as always, is the execution. Can they pull it off, or do they ruin it before it even started? For that, I guess, we do have to wait and see, guys. Wait and see. So, I guess this is it for today. My name is Sneaky Dexter and you just watched my highlights of E3 video. I hope you had fun and you did learn a little bit something about games that you might be interested in as well. If you do want more content like that, if you do want more reviews, first impressions and let's play videos, subscribe to my channel now. See you guys in the next video.